with anonymous, confidential, etc. You are also free to ask us questions. So if you have any questions that you have, or if you think we should be looking for anything, you're more than welcome to raise those points. Yes, and yeah. So would you like to record, Piero? Or?
Yes, I asked him, and he said he has
okay.
no problem, and it's on.
Okay. Could you please tell us about your main role in the program?
Yeah, so it's Key E2, which stands for Key Expert number 2. I'm in charge of 2 tasks mainly. Task B, which is general promotion and relations with multipliers, and Task C, which is common branding and communications. So I oversee these 2 tasks in Europe, definitely, and I also coordinate with the local teams in the target markets in Asia when it comes to branding and promotion. Although they are autonomous and they can, of course, work on their own promotional strategy when it comes to the specificities of Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, and so on.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Right.
So that's helpful. We will go into some specific questions, and then maybe we'll come back just to, since given that you're a key member of the team, we wondered if you had an opinion about the relevance of this program and how consistent it is with the objective of the partnership instrument, in particular objective number 3, which is looking at enhancing market access, boosting trade, investment and business opportunities. How consistent do you feel is the objective program contributing to this objective in your own words?
Yeah, well, I would say that it's right on target. This is exactly what we're doing. Sometimes my answers tend to be short.
Fine.
So that would have been my answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And now that we are at the halfway point, I think 2 full cycles have already been implemented. Yes. How far do you feel has the program methodology and its activities contributed to the achievement of the objectives of the program, which are best to strengthen the presence of European companies in key markets?
So how does this methodology have helped to reach this objective?
Yes.
And also you can refer to the communication methodology.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm not really that familiar, of course, with all the other tasks. But definitely this approach is very structured. So we have the EU Gateway methodology, and at least in my case it's working. We started first focusing on the branding. That was the first step I had to take into account, because at the time we did not have business mission to promote. The program hadn't started yet. So with this methodological approach, still in terms of communication, there was something to do, namely branding. And after we have, let's say, set the basis for the communication, we also started to gain critical mass in terms of content, which we could have used for the other activities, namely general promotion, for example, and communications. So I think the methodology that was suggested to the client, to the European Commission, actually helped me to structure my work and to start doing something without maybe having had past experience with the previous editions of the program. I think the methodology definitely contributed to a faster and a smoother start and kick-off of the program, at least in my case for task B and C.
And since the program was running since the 19th, no? Was it?
In Japan, it started in
Japan.
1990. The pilot started in 1990.
And then you had a full period before this. What is the difference between the old branding strategy and the new one, let's say?
In terms of branding, I would say that the previous editions of the program were mainly focusing on one market, Japan, and then on Japan and Korea. Then there was a pilot which did not include Japan nor Korea. It was based in Southeast Asia, and this new edition combines all the previous editions. So the main challenge for branding was how to keep the history and the legacy from the past and from all these different markets and merge them together all in one.
Okay. And sorry, you could continue. Even if I make just to make a question, you can continue. And the logo was redesigned.
Yes, it was redesigned. So, do you want me to be more specific
Yes,
on the branding and the logo? Okay. So, as I said, one of the main challenges was to provide continuity, let's say, from the previous editions, but also to make it clear that this was something new and that we were combining the best from all the previous editions. So there are some visual elements from the previous logo which were kept, namely the gateway. So the EU Gateway Business Avenues logo is comprised of three elements. One is the gateway, which is blue, recalling the colors of the EU, but not that close because the client didn't want to have it look so bright blue as the EU flag. So it's a different shade of blue, but still that's the connection. That's the first item, the gateway, which comes from Asian gate in Korea, in Japan. That's the shape they have. Then we have a calligraphic sign going through the gate, representing, of course, access to these markets. It used to be gray in the previous edition. We have changed it to green for two reasons. One, because this program had a green focus, let's say, which is in line, of course, with the European strategy, and also because green was a color used in during the pilot in Southeast Asia, which was the EU Business Avenues. The other challenge and the other third part of the logo is the wording, it's the name of the program. So we had the previous editions up until 2014, from 1990 to 2014, which were called EU Gateway or Gateway to Japan or to Japan and Korea. But then the pilot had a different name. It was chosen by the previous contractor because after a research they found out that gateway as a term was overused in Southeast Asia, and they decided that business avenues would have sounded better to sell the program. So the pilot was called Business Avenues, and that's why the new program is combining all these experiences, and it's called EU Gateway Business Avenues. And this EU Gateway Business Avenues is the last part of the logo.
And don't you think it's too long?
I think it's too long. Of course, if compared to a shorter one, but the previous one was EU Gateway to Japan and Korea, and this is probably longer. I have to check on the characters count, but more or less it's the same length. But it's also true that within the specific markets in Asia, we are not known as EU Gateway Business Avenues, but simply as EU Gateway to Korea or EU Gateway to China, and so on. We had two options when it came to branding. The one we have adopted is can be called a derivative approach. For example, like Apple, you have the iPhone, the iPad, and so on. It's all I something. And it's the same kind of approach we're using now with EU Gateway. We have the EU Gateway to something, to somewhere.
Okay.
And also the logo is the same, just like for the iPhone, the iMac, and the iPad. It's always the Apple. And in our case, it's always the gateway with the calligraphic sign. Initially, we had thought about coloring differently the calligraphic sign. So, for example, EU Gateway to China would have had a red light instead of a green line going through the gate. But then, since the effort was in combining all these different pilots and experiences from the past, we decided to go for a more consistent visual identity. And that's why it's always the same gateway with the same green calligraphic sign going through it. The only part that changes is the name.
So, even that if you consider to add the business avenues, because you said that gateway was a word that was, I didn't get it.
So in Southeast Asia, the previous contractor, after a research, understood that gateway was overused. Too many initiatives.
Too many initiatives.
Yeah, we're using this word.
But despite this, let's say you can say that the program is already recognized as EU Gateway more than Business Avenues. That's it. Because you could have chosen to call the program EU Business Avenues and get out the gateway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But now
But then I would have lost all the history dating back till 1990, and that's with Japan and Korea, and that's where we're strong, because we are a name. I couldn't waste or give away this part of the branding. The name is also, of course, a part of the brand.
Is there any risk to, because I saw there is a terms of reference that says EU Green Gateway to Japan.
Yes.
Yes. So,
Business Avenue to Japan or something like this.
So the TOR calls the program differently, a Green Gateway to Japan, for example, and also to Korea. Together with the client, so with the European Commission, we decided to adopt this name and to get rid of the green part, because we thought it would have been comprised in the green calligraphic sign and of course in also all the other materials promoting the sector. But this is not true for Japan when it comes to their local promotional strategy, because although in Europe we call it EU Gateway to Japan, in Japan itself the program is known and sold as EU Green Gateway to Japan.
I see.
This is what I was asking, why I was asking this, because if you in a, let's say, official document, you do this, then you damage a bit this branding effort, like to call the program in the same way in every market, target market, and give and I think that you have to homogenize a bit the way you, for example, you can add the to Japan, to China, or to Southeast Asia, but then each page has to relate to the main program, like or to not only through the logo but also through the name of the program. And I see that for Southeast Asia, the logo is not EU Gateway to Southeast Asia, it's EU Business Avenues
in Southeast Asia. And that's because the program in Southeast Asia was born as EU Business Avenues in Southeast Asia, while the program in Japan and Korea was born as EU Gateway to Japan and Korea. So the new program, which combines all of them, combines also the names, keeping EU Gateway, which is how it was branded and known for Japan and Korea, and Business Avenues, which is how it was born and branded in Southeast Asia.
So you as a common, you have it as EU Gateway, and then in the target markets you make this.
I always refer to the program as EU Gateway Business Avenues.
Okay.
So in Europe it's known as EU Gateway Business Avenues. In the local markets it changes. So the text will change, but the visual part of the logo will remain the same.
But as a, let's say, as a branding expert, what is your personal opinion of this? I mean, how would you have done it from the beginning, from the scratch, from?
Without taking into account the context, I would have considered calling the program in this with only one name. But since before coming up with the name, of course I documented myself. Two things made me decide for this solution. First, it was a way to, as I said, keep the value from the previous different brandings, because they were different programs, one targeting Asia, Japan and Korea, and one targeting Southeast Asia, who were run at different time, and I wanted to keep. They were run at different time. So
now this is what I didn't know.
EU Gateway to Japan, including Korea, ran from the year 1990 till the year 2014. This is the first big leg. Korea was only added at the end, from 2008 to 2014. EU Business Avenues in Southeast Asia was a pilot which took place in the next 2 years. And after that, there was the new edition, this edition, which combined both the different experiences. So when if I had to come with a name, I would have called it with only one name. But since I knew about this history and I wanted to let's say leverage on the branding which had been done before, I decided that this could have been a good way of combining the different needs. Because I think also in branding, you need to find a compromise. It's not always what looks good on paper, but then you have to see also what's the history of the brand. This is not something new. It's something that existed for over 25 years. And you cannot just change it like this. If you change it like this, you will lose all the value, the brand equity that you have accumulated throughout these years. So I had to find a way to combine the two. And in my opinion, I'm okay. The program, I know that in Southeast Asia it's known as Business Avenues, while in Korea, China, and Japan is known as EU Gateway, but still I'm okay, because these are specificities of the local markets. Whilst in Europe, I always brand it as EU Gateway Business Avenues.
Okay.
You also mentioned, for Japan, the ambassador wanted it called EU Green.
That's a specific question from the EU delegation in Japan. I'm not sure it's the ambassador. I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or someone within the delegation.
But I'm sure it must be someone high in the hierarchy, and I guess it's the ambassador.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Japan, the program is called EU Gateway to Japan, or EU
Green Gateway.
Okay. Okay.
They refer to the program like this.
Okay.
But the logo is EU Gateway to Japan.
Yeah, in the website, yeah?
In the website.
And in the materials.
And in the material.
Okay.
But when they
like communications, email.
The communication written in Japanese will say EU Green Gateway to Japan.
Okay. Then, since it's related to the methodology, and you were speaking about like different milestones that were achieved. Well, the first one was like the branding. Could you mention the other ones you have in mind as a milestone in this methodological
milestone? I think it's 3 steps and not necessarily subsequential. Some can also be run in parallel. The first one definitely is branding. We couldn't start without defining who we were and how to present ourselves. And these not only from a point of view of external communication, but also internally. So working with a team in such a dispersed in such a wide region, namely Europe and Asia, we needed to have guidances and consistent approach on how to present ourselves. And we started with the brand that once approved, and it was not. If I can add something on the branding, was not only my decision. We decided the brand logo and the name of the program together with the client, taking a lot of also the client's inputs on the branding, being this just the visual part or the name of the program. So probably I should have added this before when I was talking about branding, that it was not just me sitting at my desk and decided, okay, this is blue, this is green, and that's the name. It was a discussion that went through for probably the first 3 or 4 weeks. So I started working on January the 4th, and on February the 9th, after a month, I have launched the program and released, officially released the branding guidelines, logo and everything else in a month. So during this month, not only have worked with the designer, but also, of course, I was working with the client through many meetings on how to call the program and assessing the different options that were available, both for the name and the visuals. So these, going back to your second question, Patricia, study on the branding and the development of the communication toolkit, which I released after a month on 9 February with all the team, was probably the first step I worked on, branding, so that we would know how to call ourselves and how to sell ourselves outside with companies and with other partners. In parallel, while after I had started working on the branding, I have also started to reach out to the key multipliers, especially one, the EEN, the Enterprise Europe Network, which according to the proposal was to be seen and treated as a key multiplier, was engaged. We had, I'm not sure, I think at least 2 meetings with Britta M, who was back then the person in charge of the Enterprise Europe Network, at the European Commission first, and then at their premises, and we tried to, we looked for points we had in common, for example, sectors or services which we could use to promote the program on their network, according to the client's desiderata. This was also a specific request from the European Commission, that we would engage and work closely with the Enterprise Europe Network. So I was developing the branding, I was starting to reach out for potential multipliers, and I was also trying to acquire critical mass content-wise, because once I've had the branding, once I have had the multipliers, and my website, I should have, of course, started to publish something.
Some message.
Yeah. So at the beginning, of course, the core business and the key content of this program are the business missions. Everything revolves around the business mission. Of course, they generate opportunity. We had already success stories from the previous edition, but if you want to have something fresh and new to attract the interest of the media, the multipliers, and potential companies, must be referred to the future of the program, so the new business mission. Once the first had started being defined, I could launch the website with the open call for the first two business missions, one in Korea and one in Southeast Asia. So these three things, according to the methodology which derives from the task B and C, were the first three steps I took. Branding, reaching out to multipliers, and content, let's say. These three steps.
Content development. Great, great. So we can pass to the next question.
And to what extent, from a communication perspective, to what extent do you feel does communications help in the program achieving its objectives, which is to promote or strengthen the presence of European countries in key markets?
Okay, so my role within the CMU is mainly focusing on general promotion and awareness, which is not to be confused with direct recruitment.
Sure.
So technically speaking, I try to coordinate with the coaching network when it comes to business mission promotion, but there's a point after which I cannot go, and when it's too specific, it's promoting a business mission too specifically, that's usually when the coaching network steps in and continues what I have started in terms of general awareness. My target audiences are not just the companies. I have different audiences. One that could be considered also internal is also the, for example, the partnership instrument itself. Part of my communication activities were also developed to let people who work for the partnership instrument understand the value of this program and understand how it works. Another target audience are my multipliers, which can be divided into EU member state permanent representation in Brussels, which then pass the message at the national level, and other organizations who are active in specific sectors, namely healthcare and medical technologies, green energy technologies, and so on. So we started. I'm sorry, Shana, I think I'm not answering to your question.
But it's good that you're defining the audiences, because then that gives us more scope. So please continue.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay, no, I just was trying to think, how do I go back to your initial question?
Sure, but it's fine. I mean, you mentioned the partnership instrument,
Yeah.
Some of the audiences, and the multipliers.
Yeah.
You said there were two types. Yeah, one is
one is I would call them like institutional multipliers, so the EU member states.
Okay.
They have a permanent representation. They all have a permanent representation in Brussels, and of course, that's for me. It's more of an internal audience.
Sure.
Of course, we have working for an EU-funded program. We have to give visibility, and we have to be transparent on how we use these resources and what opportunities also we offer to each of the single EU member states. So For example, every year I run a
this has
campaign.
to do, with the values of the EU. Okay, the transparency and the equal opportunities.
So every year I run a campaign targeting the EU member states, the permanent representation in Brussels, which was discussed a lot on year one, together with the client and the team leader, in terms of what we could do and what kind of feedback or reaction we should have expected from the EU member state permanent representations, which are usually not so responsive to these to these communications, to the communication in general. So based on the past experience from the previous edition of the program, they have seen that engagement with EU member state permanent representation was was lower than expected. So based on all these considerations, we decided that rather than, if you pass me the term, spamming the EU member states, we should have condensed the information on yearly communication, which we are currently doing via email. It's not mass mailing, it's a custom mailing, which I write under my own name, so it's always Piero, Zilio, and not a generic contact mailbox that addresses these people. And every year I try to focus the attention on a new topic so that I can make it different and change. So for year one, the communication to the EU member states was, of course, the launch of the program in 2016. We have launched the program, and this is what how it works and what has been done in the past. For the year two, in 2017, the communication revolved around the new market, Japan. So in 2017 we launched Japan, and the communication to EU member states reflected this new opportunity for organizations and companies in their own countries. And on year three, this year, 2018, the key message were the opportunities for the upcoming year. It was more or less, let's say, a business mission calendar, giving also an insight on companies' feedback from within that specific member state. And I have seen that this has worked much better than in the past. Because in the past, I did not have the critical mass to customize the communication for a specific EU member state. But this year, after, for example, having attended so many business missions and having interviewed so many companies, what I've done when I was writing to the Spanish EU member state permanent representation, I have also made sure that in my communication I included video interviews from Spanish companies or who benefited from the program. When I wrote to the Danish representation, I made sure I included Danish companies. And I have seen that engagement improved a lot. But
and how did you measure this engagement?
Okay,
the replies to emails, or
I am now using two KPIs. Let's say the first one is the open rate. So how many people actually open your email? How many people unsubscribe because they decide that this is spam? They do not want to know about the EU program. The open rate was kind of low for the first campaign to the EU member states permanent representation, but since year two it doubled and it went up to about 60% open rate, meaning that 60% of the recipients would open my email. according to the average, this is quite high in terms of open rate. You will see maybe when you talk to the coaching network that the open rate is usually around 15% or 20%.
And also you can, maybe you saw that also the videos that were embedded in these emails were
exactly. And then I looked
the number of views and all this.
Yes, and I compare now with the click rate, because the click rate was initially around 13%, which is still high. Usually a good click rate is around 5%, but we EU member states it's different. They have a specific mandate, so usually they open and click more your email. And now with this customized campaign, the click rate jumped from 13% to 33%, because this year I managed to have a truly customized message. Okay, it's all about the critical mass. If you have content, of course you can craft a much more engaging message. So hopefully for 2019...
So these are the two, let's say, KPIs that you are managing for this campaign.
I try to use the same KPIs also for other campaigns, for example, with the multipliers or with the companies, because when we launched the program, going back to the different audiences, we also had another, let's say, niche audience, which we then dropped after discussing together with the coaching network and with the client, with the European Commission. I asked and gained a database of previous participants, so companies, to the previous edition, and when I launched the program, one target audience were also previous participants, because they can participate up to 5 business missions, even if they have participated in the previous editions of the program. So that's the only case when CMU contacted also companies, in this case companies who had previously participated in an edition or applied. Maybe they applied but they had not been selected. I contacted them again to let them know that the program was up and running again, that the EU had set the clock to 0 and that they could apply again to the program. So this was another audience, companies, but after that we decided that since companies were more strictly related to the specific recruitment for a business mission, the coaching network managed communication for recruitment purposes with the companies, and the CMU kept communication with the EU member states, sector multipliers. So if the sector is green energy, I would contact green energy associations. Actually France does it, and probably it's something you want to ask her tomorrow as well, since she's managing multipliers right now. So we have these mailings to sector organizations. Sector organizations come from the European sector studies, which have been commissioned by the client to the CMU. So these European sector studies, we also identify key players in all EU member states. When it comes to communication, I make sure that these multipliers are informed about the opportunities, so that they can inform themselves their member organizations or companies within, I don't know, food and beverage or construction building technologies and so on. So this being another audience, and then of course my main audience, and this is can be divided itself in two, is the general public when it comes to accountability on how we use the resources of the European Union. So general public awareness, this is mainly done through articles on the website or on social media. And then of course potential businesses or business association which could be interested and benefit from the program in each of the 28 EU member states. And this is done through specific organic posts organic is something which is not paid. I'm sure you know what just for, and also through paid advertisement. So when it comes to paid advertisement, I select my audience better. So besides being from the 28 EU member states, I also add some interest specific to the business or the market to make sure that the people who will be reached by these messages will have more chances to go on the website and click and eventually apply on a business mission or subscribe to the newsletter or simply become familiar with the program. So if you want, I can recap. I understand I made.
No, it's fine.
It's fine. Just to understand the sector multipliers and the potential business associations, they're two different.
No. The potential business associations, when it comes to multipliers, are grouped by sector.
Okay. And there then they become sector multipliers.
But there are some that could be active in more than one sector.
Okay.
And out of these, there are also the so-called key multipliers, such as the EN, which was the first one. Now for Japan, it's the EU-Japan Center. And others. I don't know if you want to ask me or you want to ask Franz tomorrow.
Okay, you think Franz is better in terms of...
Well, she's officially responsible for the managing the multiplier.
Okay.
So when I started, Franz wasn't in the team yet, and the whole tasks B and C were managed directly by me, by myself only. After that, we had a short time with another communication specialist was with us for a couple of months, and now it's Franz managing the multipliers.
Okay.
So I know, of course, I have the overview because I'm the key expert too, and that's why I know if you want to ask me something, I know what to tell you, and I was here since when nobody else was here. So if you want to know about the past, how we started, why we selected some multipliers, you can definitely ask me.
Yeah, more or less I've read about this, and also Helen, in the meeting we had with her, she explained a bit this strategy, and after talking and hearing you, I feel this has been like an evolving methodology and setting up, let's say, the floor for or the basis for going, let's say, further and reaching not only more European companies, but also maybe the most appropriate ones, because it's a learning process. You have some information about the market, about some key multipliers, but then you discover on the way that there are other ways to enter and to meet these people, because maybe you thought that the permanent representations would help a lot, but or at least they're at least an entry point for reaching national and regional enterprises. But then you have to continue if these channels, because I can imagine there are some permanent representations that really have an impact in the market, and other ones that are more here for diplomacy and political affairs. So, but now I have the feeling that that maybe you have envisioned some new steps in the strategy, like another phase, a new phase. You're consolidating things you're consolidating relations. You see that some of the strategies you've been implementing, as the one you've been implementing for engaging the permanent representations is working. But and now, what do you plan for the next 2 years? A bit in terms of, for example, the attendance to trade fairs, international, and all these things.
So the strategy, the approach to multipliers has evolved, hasn't changed, but I would say has adapted throughout these first 2 years, and a couple of months. For example, at first we consider attending trade fairs as a CMU to promote the program. We had different options also in terms of engaging with multipliers online, webinars namely. So I had proposed a plan on year 1 to the client for 2 things. One was participating to trade fairs, as you have said, and the other one was organizing EU Gateway Business Avenues webinars for interested partner organizations or potential multipliers, so that we could have informed many of them about the opportunities of the program, and then they could have spread the word and inform their own members. The client was not really keen on either of the 2 proposed approaches, and that is why on year 1 and year 2 the CMU did not participate to any trade fairs. So during the discussion, what I did to prepare for to present my proposal, I started to map trade fairs across Europe to get an idea, of which are the sectors available and which are the opportunities that we could leverage on if we go there, if we attended as a CMU to one of these events. And after mapping the possible trade fairs in Europe, we realized that they were extremely sector-specific, and that they would have been more useful for the coaching network in terms of recruiting the companies, so that there would not have been room for the CMU to meet with multipliers, but it would have been easier for the coaching network to meet directly with companies and to recruit them. So of course, whenever I come with a proposal for the client, I do my research, I do my homework first. So mapping the trade fairs was my approach. A colleague who was working with me back then, her name was Sophie, she helped me in the mapping. I don't know if this is relevant. Anyway, it was 2 of us working on the mapping. And after the mapping, we had a meeting with the European Commission, a coordination meeting, and we just went through the data and realized that probably it was not for us. So what we did when it comes to CMU participation to this kind of events, we decided that probably 2016 was not the best year, because trade fairs were not that good for us in terms of reaching out to multipliers, but that we would have put this in standby. And perhaps if a new opportunity would have come in the months of years after, we would have taken it. So what happened last year is that we had 2 annual team meetings from EEN, which is a key multiplier, one in Tallinn and one here in Brussels. At this annual meeting, many of the local antennas, let's say from the EEN, would have participated, and these are multipliers. So, I don't know, EEN Spain, EEN UK, and so on. We discussed this again with the client and with our colleagues from the coaching network, and we decided that CMU would have attended the meeting here in Brussels, while the coaching network would have attended the meeting in Tallinn, in Estonia, because to that meeting, many of the local branches of the EN would have attended the event. And while CMU focuses its effort on pan-European multipliers like the EN, the coaching network is more on a national level. So in Tallinn, they would have met with I don't know, EN Spain, as I was saying, EN Germany, EN, I don't know, Baltic, and so on. So CMU prepared a presentation for the EN outlining keynotes for the speaker and our core business and added value to the companies. And then the coaching network went to Tallinn and presented on behalf of the EU Gateway Business Avenues, because they were reaching out to national level multipliers. So this for trade fairs, participation to trade fairs. So it's something we have assessed, and we have decided so far not to go for, because we have found better ways of engaging with multipliers or directly with companies through the coaching network. The other plan and option I had presented to the client were the webinars. The client was not entirely convinced about the webinar, and again, after discussing with the my team, the CMU and the client together in a coordination meeting, we decided that perhaps just like for trade fairs, webinars could have worked better for recruiting companies rather than other partner organizations. So we ran
what were the topics of the webinars you planned?
For example, we ran the first test webinar on food safety technologies and services, which was a sector, a new sector in China that the coaching network was having issues in recruiting companies. We had an expert from this sector, food safety technologies and services in China, and we invited the companies, not only us, but also the coaching network, who was hosting and providing sector experts and advice. This first test webinar did not go really well. Participation was low, and we had some technical issues. And that is why, with the client, we decided not to go for webinars run by the CMU and directed to them. To partners, to potential partners. So this was 2016. So trade fairs and webinars both assessed and tested in a way, but put in standby. In 2017, between 2016 and 2017, we decided we would try a different approach based on a face-to-face meeting. So we started meeting with potential partner organizations which were based here in Brussels. Of course, the number were much smaller because through online communication you can reach more people and faster. But face-to-face, it takes time to schedule and discuss. That is also why we developed specific products for approaching multipliers, potential multipliers or partners on a face-to-face meeting, like a PowerPoint presentation specific for multipliers, or a leaflet which we would hand to the multiplier while we met them. And we also talked about sending a letter, a physical letter. So we would reach out with a, it was at the end of the year, so it was something like, okay, it's not a holidays greeting, but something physical we would send at the end of the year to say, okay, this is us, we would like to meet, and then we would follow up via email. The first letter sent to the Secretary General of the organization, and the other letter sent to the communication officer or manager of the organization. It didn't work well in terms of quantity, but in quality it brought us new multipliers. So our partner section of the website started being populated with new multipliers, and this is what France is currently doing. She's managing one-on-one relations with key partner organizations. Among these, it's besides the EN, is the IPR help desk for in China and Southeast Asia. Now it's the also EU-Japan Center for business, because we have this new market. And that's how the strategy is adapting to 2017 and 2018. What have I done? I have started to work more on article marketing, which is trying to find a way for our partners to mention us without feeling this message is too intrusive. So, for example, when I go on a business mission, I try to interview the companies attending the business mission, the European companies, and I try to get a soundbite with reference to the partner organization. Namely, I'm in Singapore, I will interview a company and ask them to refer to the IPR help desk Southeast Asia. So that in my video interview there's both a message related to EU Gateway and the partner, and it's easier for the partner to share it on their website or on their newsletter and so on. And I've done the same with the EU-Japan Center with my last video, where I have interviewed an expert from the EU-Japan Center, because I'm sure it will be easier for me to sell my message if they are featured on my communication products. So that's how the strategy is evolving at this moment. We have now reached our critical mass. It's I think 10 key multipliers at the moment, and I can read them aloud if you need them.
Yes.
So just a second, which I'll take the file. And then, of course, we have all the sector organizations which are not included in this key multiplier list. So, key multipliers at the moment we are considering the EN, of course, the ECCP, the IPR help desks, the INSME. Then we have INSME, INSME. It's an organization which counts 65 members, and which is its goal is to help SMEs internationalize their businesses. Then we have from DG Agri, we have Shafer, yes. Then, of course, we have the EU-Japan Center as a key multiplier. We have Scambout, which is an association that groups other organizations in the Scandinavian region and the Baltics, and they mainly focus on technologies, healthcare and medical technologies, for example. Then we have Czech for construction and building technologies. We have Flanders Investment and Trade. Some of these are maybe focused on a specific sector or area, but still we count them as key multipliers. And then there's another one which recently joined yesterday. And it's digital SME. I cannot find it in the contact calendar because it's too recent.
Czechia, how do you spell that?
CECE.
CECE.
Anyway, you could maybe send us or Francis.
Yes, sure. So some of these are partners, some of these are key multipliers, but still they have a privileged treatment because we realize that they are active in sharing our message.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of, as you mentioned, for multipliers, you have reached this critical number or targets. What are the other major impacts you feel have resulted from the communication and branding efforts, either quantitative or even the big picture? Do you feel, for example, that people see the program as one unit now, with one sort of branding?
When you say people, who do you mean? Like the participating companies?
Say your target groups, like for example, you mentioned you had people from the
participating companies. I would say yes.
Okay.
EU member states permanent representation. I would say yes.
Okay.
Multipliers, yes, and of course partners.
What do you refer to partners?
Partners are the special ones I have just named.
Okay, so but they are multipliers?
We have a privileged channel for them.
Okay.
So we communicate more with them. For example, the regular multiplier would receive updates on the program via mass mailing, while a partner would receive more frequent communications. A partner would have an article describing the partnership between us and them on their website. A partner is probably retweeting or sharing our content also on social media, while to a multiplier we do not request any of this. With a partner on the website, there's a section for partners with also terms and conditions. So it's quite defined what we mean by partnership and what we expect in exchange for this collaboration. So with a partner, for example, we share the logo. We have a small kit, a zip file which includes logo, design manual, and a few other instructions on how to use if they want our brand to showcase the fact that we are partnering on this program. And if you want me to be more specific, I'll just open the terms and conditions on the trader.
You can send them to me anyway. I just got a bit confused while you were speaking because when you were explaining the multiplier, let's say the webinar strategy and also the trade fair strategy, at the beginning I thought, you started talking about targeting let's say participating companies, but then you started talking about targeting the partners, and so which I understood were the multipliers, well let's say the main multipliers. And so also I see that your test, the first webinar was on a sector that they were also having problems for recruiting to that mission. So maybe it's also because as it was difficult for them to attract people for the mission, it happened that it was also difficult for the webinar, no? Mm-hmm. So maybe, but that also when Ellen came, I felt that the trade fairs is an option for reaching companies. So this is, I got confused at a certain point in this conversation, so I don't know if you can clarify a bit.
Yeah, sure. So maybe my explanation was confused, but I can reassure you I was not confused. So
I'm sure of that. I'm sure, but this is new,
okay. For me. So I'll go back to the launch of the program, which is when I have contacted also the companies, just to clear this, okay? So CNU contacted the companies only once when we launched the program, and the only companies we have contacted were previous participants. After that, it was up to the coaching network to reach out to companies. So CMU communication efforts were directed toward different audiences.
And are still directed.
Directed towards
this I understood.
audiences.
This is why the explanation I have.
Okay. So one of these audiences is the EU member state permanent representations. This is also something we have to do. We have to reach out to these potential multipliers. They need to be informed for accountability of what we are doing, and they can also have a multiplier effect if when we inform them, they see the value of our message and they decide to share it among their national networks. So this is one. And we reach out to EU member states once a year with a communication that every time is different and adapts to what I see is the content that they like the most. So we started in 2016 with the launch of the program, low open rate, low click rate. We moved to in 2017 with a message around the new market, new opportunity available in Japan, higher open rate and higher click rate. And this year we have crafted the message around the 2018, let's call it like this, business mission calendar, with linking it specifically to benefits that European companies have received for per each of the EU member states. And in this case we've had more or less the same open rate, but more people clicked and followed our links on the website. So the success of this campaign has increased. Next year, for EU member states, I'm not sure yet what I will do. Probably again the 2019 business mission calendar, and then in 2020 I will move back to more of a accountability strategy, just to share what we have achieved per each of the EU member states thanks to this program. The other target audience for our communication are the
network.
These so-called multipliers.
Sector multipliers.
Yeah, within this big group of multipliers, we can distinguish key multipliers, which by the TOR and also by our proposal have are the EN, the Enterprise Europe Network, and which have become also, for example, the IPR help desk to China and Southeast Asia, and the EU Japan Center for Business Cooperation.
And they are also partners, right?
Some of these have become partners. So at one point, following up also on coaching network feedback, we realized that multipliers was just too broad. Some of them were specific for recruitment, some of them were nationwide, some other pan-European, and we had to sort all this. So from the key multipliers, we came up with the so-called partner organization, and they follow a protocol. So there are terms and conditions for the partner organization. Partner organization also have a specific section on the website, on our website, and they are obliged to post a specific number of articles or pieces upon joining the partnership and when we have the business missions. And then there's another group of multipliers which can be grouped according by sector. and this is also our target group. When it comes to these multipliers in general, we have worked on 4 different strategies. The first one being participation to trade fairs or to events. We discussed this with we mapped trade fairs and event opportunities in Europe, and once we had mapped all of these opportunities, we shared them with the client and we discussed. And the conclusion of this discussion was that rather than having a CMU participating to these trade fairs and events to engage with multipliers, there were more opportunities for the coaching network to participate to these events and trade fairs and engage directly with the companies for recruitment purposes. That's why we have dropped, actually we have put in standby CMU participation to events. It can happen, as it did happen last year in September here in Brussels when we participated to an EN meeting, because they are a key multiplier, but it's not a strategy which is envisaged by the client.
Okay.
Another strategy we have proposed to engage with multipliers was, the second one was through webinars. Have a webinar to present the program to multipliers who would then promote the program in their own countries or sectors. Again, we discussed about the webinar structure and who to call, what to present together with the client. And we concluded that just like for events and trade fairs, it would have been better for the coaching network to run business mission specific webinars and to see whether this was a good tool or not for recruitment. The first test webinar was run in sector very specific, which is food safety technologies and service for China, which was causing difficulties in recruitment. So the coaching network wanted to test the webinar for this specific sector and business mission, but it was the coaching network's idea, and they hosted it and called the sector experts and so on. It didn't work out well, so on our case, CMU was not requested to run any other webinars, and in their case, I know, because I've met with them last week, that they have started to run webinars again in a different way, in a different format, which I feel works best for them, and I'm sure you will ask them when you'll meet them. So this was the second strategy to approach multiplier. Third strategy was through face-to-face meetings, especially with potential partner organizations which are based in Brussels. We started to do this, and we have had some positive results. For example, CECE, that partner organization, is one that we have met here in Brussels, and the Secretary General was extremely happy to be engaged by the program. He sees the value of the of our service and wants to promote us among their partner members. But of course, in this case, face-to-face meetings numbers are much lower because it takes more time to arrange and to find. And the fourth strategy we have implemented for to reach out the engaged multiplier is mainly based on online through mailings and direct emails. We also have spontaneous applications through the website. There's a partner section, and you can apply to become a partner. So we have received applications also through this form, which is usually a landing page where the coaching network tells multiplier to go. So if the coaching network realizes that there's a multiplier who's actually being very productive and bringing expression of interest from companies. They will direct them, forward them to us or through the web form on the website, and we will process their request. So as Franz will explain to you tomorrow, she assesses the potential partner organization, sends this list to Ellen, to the client, which has the last word and decided whether to approve or not.
And do you have a number of how many
partners
through the web, through a spontaneous application, or not?
You could send it to us.
Anyway.
Probably. I have to discuss this with Franz. But partners are a very special multiplier, so their number is limited.
Sure.
We have, I think, 7 or let me count.
Yeah, but I just in case it's only one, but
no. I think 40% of multipliers came through the web form, but it's not necessarily spontaneous, because it could be that the coaching network told the multiplier, you can apply online, and they just fill the form.
Okay. Great. Also, maybe it's the same list that you named one by one before. Maybe
some of them are key multipliers, some of them are partners.
Should we ask the list from France or from
yourself? Or is it important to have the numbers and the difference between these? Or even...
Maybe what we'll do is we'll send out an email to you and to France, asking for this information and how they came forward. And,
yes, in the TOR, I think it's, I agree with you that it's a little confused, this whole naming and classification of multipliers.
Yes, because I have a multipliers strategy, I read it, and I see they're embedded, like these partner organizations are in the considered multipliers.
According to the TOR, the only key multiplier is EN. Because in TOR, EN is referred to as a key multiplier. So since I was here since the very start of the program, I know that the way multipliers have been called has changed throughout the program. So probably this has added to the confusion. But when it comes to partners, it's very specific because they have to respond to specific criteria.
They're here, like in the list of multipliers. This is the multiplier, you see. There are general partner organizations. So these are official partners, and there are, apart from this, there are partner organizations. So this is a classification that I don't know if it's the current or if it changed.
February 2017. Okay. So I guess I was calling Enterprise Europe Network differently, because I was referring to it as key multiplier. Because that's what it was called in the TOR.
Okay. Right, no problem. I just...
sure.
Great. So, thank you for clarifying.
If you can, and I see you're not here. This is you, right?
Yeah.
See, so key multiplier EN, but on page 1, it's referred to as official partners.
Yes.
So I have always referred to EN as key multiplier because this was the phrasing given in the TOR.
Okay.
Yeah, I read in some reports that it's like the main one, but then I didn't know. Okay, and you mentioned the permanent representations, but do you also establish contact with the regional representation? Or not?
No, because the CMU works on a pan-European level when it comes to multipliers or partner organization, and with only EU member state representation when it comes to the single EU member state. If it's a regional, it's more likely that the coaching network is involved in engaging this.
Okay. And I also was thinking that that if this coaching network, for example, goes to or plans to go to some fair trade fairs, if you try to go like to know a bit the target audience a bit better because you manage the contents on the web, so I don't know, how do you...
The client is not keen. We, as I said, we have discussed CNU participation to events and to trade fairs. The conclusion we reached with the client is that CNU is not to participate to these events yet.
So you don't... I ask you just to know if you don't feel that maybe you can lose a bit the contact with the...
Well, I don't know if you're asking me whether I trust the coaching network or not, but of course I completely trust them, because...
No, it's not that it's not a matter of trust. It's is that when you... Yeah, you're in a level, no? So yeah, you have to be well informed to not like lose contact with reality. It depends on, yeah.
Yeah, I see.
I don't know.
Of course, what you mean.
Because at the end, what the program aims is to get companies registered to participate in the business mission.
Yeah.
So I understand now that this is the role of the coaching network, and that's their target audience. But you manage communications and the website, no? What is the content posted in the website?
So the content that the coaching network is using to reach out to these companies is based on my templates, on everything they find on the communication toolkit. For example, when they go to trade fairs, they have printed out the leaflet we had developed also for reaching out with the partner organizations, with potential partners. They're using the same material. The coaching network drafts the business mission information document, which is what I post, myself or Franz, my colleagues, on the website, on the business mission landing page. So until now, I did not find any reason to attend a trade fair. I mean, I could do as an observer, definitely. I would not be able to recruit companies.
Sure.
But for example, if you ask me, I think my role could probably be more useful attending a business mission rather than a trade fair here, because if I go on a business mission, before we were talking about the critical mass, I need content, of course, to make my job, and if I don't go to attend a business mission, I do not have new and fresh information on new success stories, or maybe new I don't know, markets and sectors. So I have my critical mass, and now I'm relying on that. It could become not sufficient in maybe in the last leg, 2019, for example.
How often do you go on business missions?
Okay, so when this was part of my content strategy, which I had discussed in 2016 with the client and with the rest of the CNU, that I would attend a business mission when there was a new market or a new sector, so that I would have at least some content for the new sector or for the new market. At this point, sectors and markets, of course, have been visited. Yeah, there's only one, construction and building technologies, for the next autumn in Japan, where you are going to attend, and I will probably most likely be there. So I have, this was my initial strategy for 2016 and 2017, let's say, the first part. Then my strategy, the strategy I have proposed to the client was that I would attend those business missions which were more frequent. For example, there are some sectors which we participate quite a lot. I don't know, healthcare and medical technologies or environment and water technologies. So I came up with a proposal on the most frequent business missions so that I could differentiate my content a little. And also business missions which required, let's say, an extra kick or an extra push, because maybe there are only 2 per year, but participants are maybe hyperactive on social media. So it's useful to go there, because if you post something, your viral reach will expand. Like contemporary European design, organic food and beverage, this one, which are niche, but still participants are quite active.
Yeah, and I saw the word influencers appeared in the third report. Like also this was added to the strategy. No?
Yeah,
and maybe it comes.
Yeah, that's always been in the back of my head. But there are some business missions, for example, healthcare and medical technologies, the one we are going to attend now in Korea, where I saw some companies, because I go there with my cameraman for video interviews, that were really interested in being featured on a video interview. So usually I discuss with them, we agree on a few sound bites, and then of course they get the benefit of presenting themselves on a video interview, but they also spend good words with the program, and then they start sharing on their YouTube channel, on their company profiles, of course, LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn page, and so on. And I can tell that I get extra views because they are very active and they are keen, and of course they want this visibility. So it's a win-win. So in this case, I suggested last year and this year that CMU would attend other business mission for this purpose, but the final decision was that CMU would have attended only 2 business missions this year for promotional purposes. And of course, I don't think I will need to go, myself or my colleague from the communication team, to attend on a business mission in 2019 when the program is almost over. If we have to go, this was my idea. We have to go now because I can still use the content for promoting the next business mission. To do it in 2019 won't be as effective as to do it now. But that was the decision from the client. So.
Okay. And this decision, was it based on resources or more strategic factors? Or?
I think I wasn't able to make my point to the client, and the client doesn't see the need. I'm sure there are also other reasons. One could be that probably there could have been, if we attend to too many business missions, we could give the idea that there are too many people from the or too many organizers, and the ratio between the participants and organizers is not balanced. Which of course I perfectly understand, and I agree. This is definitely not the image we want to give.
Okay.
But this was not never officialized. So it's my idea. It's what I think.
It's your view.
And I don't mind sharing and saying that it was me who said so.
I
don't mind, but it's just that I have not received this official feedback.
In terms of on the same similar topic about the business missions and the target markets, in your opinion, how has the program improved on the image and visibility of the EU in the target markets? So the general image and visibility of the EU in the target markets.
Okay, in the target markets, it's a little off my
Sure, your sphere of operation. Yeah.
yeah, because I'm more focused on the EU, so I can give you my impressions, but they're not based on data, which is maybe not the safest option. Definitely, I have interviewed two local companies, one in China and one in Japan, because I wanted them to I wanted to use their sound bites on my video clips, on my promotional video clips in Europe. And what my feeling was that they, of course, recognized the brand of the EU and the added value of the EU gateway, bringing European advanced technologies in the target market. But this is based on a very small sample, because I did not conduct an extensive analysis on this. So in target market, the idea I got is that companies, when they see our brand, they are attracted inevitably. Also the use of EU in the name, EU Gateway, EU Business Avenues, helps co-brand the program with the European Union, and my feeling is that yeah, this has helped, and that the image is positive, but I'm not really feeling confident in.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, are there any other programs that you try and collaborate with, other EU programs outside of the multipliers, like programs within Europe, for example, or others?
Do you mean as a second job, or or within
the Gateway program? So you mentioned, okay, in terms of your multiplier strategy, you're working with these organizations. The other ones from the EU member states and also the pan-European ones. Are there any specific projects that you have approached? EU projects which have maybe a similar mandate, or working with similar types of beneficiaries? Is that ever been a strategy?
Well, of course, yes, a similar, not exactly the same mandates are, for example, even if I take the key multiplier, EEN, that could be similar, but for instance, EEN, IPR Help Desk, they focus only on small and medium enterprises, while the EU Gateway is open to any company size, any business can participate. So what we are trying to do whenever we feel that there's a potential clash of objectives and goals, we try to understand whether one program or the other could step in a different phase. So for example, some of these programs, they are actively engaged during our pre-departure meetings or even at the business exhibition, because they can offer a follow-up service or a complementary service, like the IPR Help Desk provides information and support on IPR matters. So there are some similar goals, but we are trying to complement each other rather than to clash and compete. So whenever in my tasks B and C I had to either phrase the collaboration or present it, I have tried to look for this kind of solutions. So see which are the specificities of each program. For example, one could be the fact that we refer to, we are open to all the companies and not to small and medium enterprises, or the fact that when our effort ends, namely we are just providing access to the market, but once you are in the market, you might need different form of support. Other players and other programs which could initially have been interpreted as similar can jump in.
Okay.
Like the EVBN, it's Vietnam Business Network. They have been present to our PDMs and business missions targeting Vietnam, because after the business mission, when our role is now over, can step in and offer their services.
Okay, that covers my questions. Patricia, I know you had some more specific questions, but I also know it's now already 3:30, so I don't know what we are like for time here.
I work here until late.
Okay.
No, but we have the meeting with at what time? In 15 minutes.
With Carmen, yes?
With Carmen, yes.
Carmen, okay.
How does the two of you work? So she covers more the Japan, or is she working under you, where you...
Okay, so she's the communication specialist, and according to the original plan and idea, she would have jumped in to follow Japan only.
Okay.
But since we had the time, I don't know if they told you, but two colleagues joined us and then left the program, Sophie Glaser and Rob Van Puffelen, who had been hired for Japan. We had meanwhile reinvented the role, and since I really needed help and support to manage also many of the hands-on tasks related to BNC. She's now working not only in Japan, but on across the...
Oh, she's working across both CMU,
CMU and CMU Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I just took out the questions that have been answered from the additional questions I had. What we can do is that some of them we can review them when we sit together to check the list of deliverables, but I will tell you the most important. One of the, you answer, let me tell them all, and we decide which ones you better answer now, or we better discuss them in another meeting. So one was that as we wrote you some days ago, requesting you if you had a communication strategy, we saw that in the TOR and in the first progress report, there is an indication about a PR approach and the general promotion strategy that was prepared and delivered. So we don't know if this is a document, or if this is the PPT presentation, or if this is the visual identity manual, or the multipliers strategy. I mean, we don't know exactly what this comprehends. So if there's any other additional document that we don't have, it would be good to have it.
You only have access to the communication toolkit, or also to other folders?
The toolkit, you sent us some PPTs that I understand that are your presentations to the coaching network or other multipliers.
And also to the European Commission. That's when I presented the general approach.
But there was no formal document.
There was no formal document. It was that presentation and file, for example, you see in the communication toolkit.
Yes, because normally, I mean, this communication toolkit contains all the common deliverables of a communication strategy, but normally, in any European Commission project, you are like obliged to deliver, and this is also contained in the European External Action Service strategy and DEFCO's communication strategy, that you are like obliged to deliver a document that contains like the target audience, key messages, communication toolkit or channels, communication channels that you're going to use, Also key performance indicators, what are you really going to measure as indicators within the communication strategy, and so on. So yeah, this was this wasn't required at all, like to deliver this kind of document?
I think what I had presented was considered
as
the strategy. Okay.
So the presentation was considered.
Let me check which one.
No, I mean if you didn't do it, you don't have it.
But if you
no, the PowerPoint you are referring to, if it's the same,
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, maybe we can check this PowerPoint and then you because there are some points, bullet points, like that I didn't have like the explanation because I understood that this was something that you presented to the Commission, but So yeah, and also I can show you examples of what I had to deliver for other projects. So, yeah.
And the KPIs, they were in the TOR. So, for example, in the TOR, I don't know, for tasks. In the TOR, the deliverable outputs as per